Buongiorno, buonasera, benvenuti amici. Welcome my friends. My name is Vincenzo and welcome to my channel, Fountain Pen Therapy. HONGDIAN, HONGDIAN, HONGDIAN. Last year, HONGDIAN, my Chinese pen maker of the year. HONGDIAN A9, pen of the year, or Chinese pen of the year for fountain pen therapy. And now we have the HONGDIAN A9. Is it the same? Is it the same thing? Just cartridge converter? Is there anything special about this pen? Am I excited? Yes, I am, folks. Stay tuned and I'll tell you why. Okay, so we're back with the pen. Yes, I'm excited just because HONGDIAN hasn't really come out with anything of any substance. And I'm so glad that finally we see something from them. And there is deja vu in this pen. And of course, if we're going to review the A9, I think it has to be reviewed in comparison to the N10. As I mentioned, this N10 was my Chinese pen of the year last year, and HONGDIAN was in fact declared by Fountain Pen Therapy to be the Chinese pen maker of the year for my view, for many reasons that I explained in one of my reviews, and I checked out that review. I may put it into the description for you to look at. But the question then becomes, okay, here's the A9. Is it the same thing and just with a different filling system? Or do we get some notable differences, and is it another pen that we can enjoy? And let's review that and get the details. First of all, N10. This pen, in my opinion, was almost perfect. If you'd have to fault it anywhere, would be that this section, some people found it to be slippery because it was of the same moire pattern as the rest of the pen. Some people found it slippery. Personally, I didn't. Some people also were very critical, and we're all OCD in this hobby. As you could see, the line, if you want it to line up, you could just twist it slightly, and there's a little bit of play there to make it line up. But if you line up one side, then you put out of sync the other side. Okay, as you could see. So some people argued that was a major fault in this pen. I didn't see it as a deal breaker, frankly. I really didn't. But I can see why some people would find that objectionable. And we'll get to the new one, the A9, to see whether or not those defects or so-called dislikes reappear. But when comparing it, there's obvious differences. This is a piston filler. It's got a piston knob. It's got a ring here separating the knob from the main barrel. It's got a beautiful center band with that chrome finished metal. The clips are different. The finials are very different. I prefer, frankly, the finial in the A9. The clips are different, different pen, different clip. There's an small ink window that some people argued was useless, but I don't think it was useless. I think it does serve a purpose. It's double sides, you can go right through it. And if there is no ink, you could see it. And the moire pattern is what obviously has been improved in my view. I prefer the A9. That moire pattern against the light makes it even more interesting than the N10. So on the outside, there you have the pen. And we'll do a pen comparison with some other pens in just a few minutes. Now, when we open the pen, or both pens, we can see some more differences. Some people would argue both ways. First of all, we could see that the section now in the A9 is a resin, as opposed to that same material moire pattern on the N10. The nib is chrome or silver coated as opposed to black. Frankly, I prefer this black section, this resin section, and I prefer the nib. And let me just see if I could come in closer so that you could appreciate the difference. Here we go. I like that engraving. That engraving appears to me so much more, I wouldn't say sharp, but pronounced in the chrome nib as opposed to that black nib. It says HONGDIAN fine since 1997. Number 8 size nib. They both have a ebonite feed, so there's similarities there. This nib on the is it different? No, it's the same thing. Yeah, I was going to say that it wraps around the ebonite a little more, but it's just the pen was turned, so it is. One thing that I guess some people also complained about is the fact that HONGDIAN only gives you extra fine and fine. By the way, that little dot is not at all a hole. It's just the ink. There you go. That they only have extra fine and fine. I agree with them. I mean, if this nib came in medium, wow, it would really blow everyone's minds away. So is there a better flare here than there is here? I think it's pretty similar, but I think the flare is more pronounced on the resin. Okay, so that's the difference. And uncapped, we'll see that there is a difference in size. Okay, so the A9 is smaller. Now, one of the problems with the N10 is that the cap could post, but it's posted on that knob and potentially causes the knob to engage and therefore cause a mess. Of course, we don't have that problem with the A9 now. It does post. It posts comfortably and securely. Let me just switch my camera angle so you could see. There you go. It does post it makes the pen a little long, but not overly back-weighted. And, of course, one of the major differences is this pen is much lighter than the N10 for obvious reasons. So very comfortable posted, I would say to you. And because it's a cartridge converter, you don't have the problem of engaging any piston knobs. And, of course, you opened up that main barrel. I've inked it up. You could see very nice HONGDIAN, typical HONGDIAN converter. It's metal, but there is an O-ring there, so that's a nice touch as well. In terms of manufacturing and build quality, I guess, apart from those lines not lining up. In terms of that funny line, there it is lined up. And here again, if you don't close it properly, if you do, it kind of a little bit misaligned on one end, but it isn't on the other. So it doesn't look like they got that perfect this time around. The bottom folio is kind of just flattened out looks like it's metal. And originally when I picked this up, and I didn't have my N10, I thought this was a bigger and girthier pen. But upon further examination, you could tell that it's very similar, if not identical. I had forgotten how girthy this N10 actually is. It's not huge, but it does have, it's much, put it this way, the diameter is much bigger in real life than it appears to be on camera. Put it this way, it's a nice sized pen. There really is no major defect in this pen, I got to tell you. A little bit shorter than the N10, but very, very comfortable. And we'll take a look at that nib and see whether or not I can sense any difference with the nib on the N10. They look similar. They look, in fact, identical. But is there a difference? Stay tuned for the writing sample. So I think that does it. Oh, one thing is that if you shut this thing, you may not turn it into the right groove, if you will, and those two lines will be really offset. So sometimes you'll have to play with it on more than one occasion until you kind of get it to and I able to do it in one or two shots, but I'm having difficulties. And there's probably a more scientific way of doing this. I'm not sure what it is, but there you have it. And so it lines up. But that could be a pain, okay? And for some people, it could be just a deal breaker. So buyer beware. For me, it's not a major issue just because I just love this pen. And I'm excited that HONGDIAN has finally got something out. So, maybe it's, an unwarranted excitement. But, folks, what can I tell you? I'm a passionate guy and I love this pen. There you have it. I mean, I can't lie to you. I'm not selling it. I don't get a kickback on the sales. I just like to show my viewers what's out there. And I love this pen so far. Let's just hope that nib doesn't disappoint. So what I propose, let's do a pen comparison, some measurements, and then a writing sample. Be right back. Okay, so let's look at some size and comparisons. And forgive me, but my comparison will be strictly HONGDIAN. I know you guys have other HONGDIAN pens, and I think there are, the other pens will be good reference points. As you could see, the pen is practically the same size as this N12, just slightly smaller than the D5, but bigger than this N7, bigger than this N1, and bigger than this 100. If I replace the 100 with the N10, you can of course see that the N10 is is it the biggest one? One second, let me just be a little more precise. Comes just a little bit under the D5. I would say it's the same size as the N12 here. Now, if I put back the 100, in terms of clip design, I guess the clip resembles mostly the D5 with that serpent, or with that arrow shaped at the end, but otherwise the nibs are very different from the other pens. In terms of girth, it's comparable. It's got a similar style. It's this typical, I would say, pelicanish top here, if you were a finial, that you see in Pelican pens, although there is some difference. And in that it is a little more, there's no ring as there is here. Here there's a kind of a groove here, whereas this one is more like step up, if you will, but similar to the N1, in fact, as you could see, but very different. Okay, so, but it's got the same kind of look, if you will, and some would say inspired by the Pelican, but I think it's Very unique design in my view. I mean, look, at the end of the day, you can find similarities and everything, but I think it's very, very, very different. So that's capped. Let's see what the pens look like uncapped. So those are the pens uncapped. And by the way, for those of you who are not familiar with these other pens, they've all been renewed by me. And I just hope you can appreciate the quality and the difference in terms of the offerings from HONGDIAN. And one of the reasons why, to me, it was the pen maker of the year last year. Having said all of that, here's the pen. You can see it's a nice size, very nice size, very comparable to the D5 and the N12, which are big pens. In terms of how it compares, let me just replace the 100, which is a smaller pen, with the, actually, why don't we put it, the N10 right here. Here we go. With the N10, for those of you who are interested, you could see that the N10's just got a few millimeters edge there, but not much. But in terms of section and where your fingers land, you could see there is, if they land there, you could see that somehow this nib sticks out a little more, but it's shortened a little more here. Perhaps the explanation is that this nib sticks out a little more than it does in the N10. And frankly, I prefer the A9 in that regard, because you could really see the full size of that nib. So there you have the pens unposted and uncapped. Now let's cap them all and see what we got. I mean, one of the advantages that it has posted is that it's a cartridge converter and therefore does not trigger. You don't have the problem of it triggering any piston knobs. But as you could see, posted, it is quite big. Not as big as the D5, and some of these pens don't post nicely. Comfortable, but I would argue that this N1 is probably the best poster of the gang, along with the 100. But you know what? The A9 posts nicely. Very nice weight. I would not shy away from using this pen posted, put it this way. So there you have it, the pens posted. So we'll be right back with some measurements and then the writing sample. Okay, so we're back for the writing sample. First of all, the ink. The ink that I've chosen is, for those of you who didn't watch my recap of last week, I received these new Sailor 5-year manual anniversary. Just beautiful inks, I got to tell you. This is the Tsuyu or Dew. It's kind of the blue shade version of this ink. Very, very nice. Beautiful bottle. Very wet ink. It's a lot of fun. In terms of ink swatches, I remind you of the ink swatches that I took last week in my recap. You could see it here on the Crown Bright paper, on the Tomoe River paper, on the Regalia paper, and on the Midori. So you could see it's a dark blue-black with some red sheen if you use the right paper. There you have it. That's the ink that I'm using. The paper is Tomoe River on this Galen leather notepad. And without any further ado, let's take a look at how this pen writes. So, first of all, this is the HONGDIAN A9, and it's the blue version. By the way, some people will no doubt say that this is not as blue as this one. You know, there's when compared to the two, one would say that the A9 is more of a teal than it is of a blue. I would have preferred this color, frankly, but it just gives it the difference. By the way, spoilers alert, I've ordered the green and the brown just because I think this pen is great. And that kind of corroborates my enthusiasm for the pen. And we'll see whether or not the green is the same. And well, the brown's got to be different because the N9 didn't come in brown, it came in pink. So there you have it. In terms of the nib, it is a HONGDIAN number 8 steel fine nib. The ink, as I mentioned, is Sailor Manual, and it's the Tsuyu Do. Now, right away I can tell you that there is some spring. I don't know if you could see that, but there's some spring in this nib. And you could tell that you could get some line variation out of it if you... I can never do these things. But for those of you who can, you'll see that there is some line variation. It's springy, put it this way. Certainly not flex. Is it wet? Well, I can tell you it is wet. Very, very nice. And when you compare it, the line is much thicker, I would say, than this HONGDIAN A9. Smoother. This one does have a spring as well, and I've been told, and I'm not sure that this is, that these chrome finishes always make the nib a little bit more springier than other types of finishes. I don't know if that's true, but I certainly noticed it recently I ordered a Fountain Pen Revolution Extra Fine Ultra Flex in both the dual gold, dual toned version and the chrome version, and the chrome version is so much more flexy than the other one. So there you have it. A reverse writing, an extra fine, I would say even more than triple extra fine line. But I'm not a great believer in reverse writing. Likes and dislikes. I like the design. I like the build quality. I love the nib. I like the fact that it's a cartridge converter. I'm sorry, you're all out of the picture there. Okay, here we go. Frankly, because I'm starting to realize that these piston fillers come at a premium, and I'm not sure I like the maintenance part of the whole thing, although the ink capacity arguably is much better. Value, roughly, what is it? Roughly $40, this pen, I would say. Very good value. The dislikes, well, it's just the lining up of those lines on the barrel and the cap that don't line up perfectly. We did have in the past the slipperiness of the section. That's gone in my view. Some people will argue that it would have been better if it was a piston. So is a no-no. I would argue that that may be an actual advantage. So I don't see it as a true dislike. At the end of the day, unfortunately, folks, I recommend this pen. I give it a 10 on 10. What can I say? I'm a sucker for HONGDIAN. I really am. So take that with a grain of salt, if you will, but I Trust me, this pen is beautiful. Now, let me just sign this. There you have it, folks. The HONGDIAN A9. I think it's a great little pen. At 40 bucks, it's worth every penny. And I hope you share in my opinion if you decide to get it. If you think it's a déjà vu and you prefer the N10, hey, that N10 is a gorgeous pen as well. In fact, if they ever sell the nibs, I'm going to make sure in the N10 I put this chrome nib. I prefer it, frankly. I really do. It's a fine, but it's a much thicker line. To me, it's almost obvious. So what can I say? You got to find, and maybe there's snuck in a little medium in there. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe it's just my pen, and that happens. Sometimes it's hit and miss. So grazie molto, ragazzi. Grazie, grazie, grazie. Thumbs up. Subscribe. Please subscribe. 50% of you watch but don't subscribe. Just click the button. You'll get a notification when I put up on videos. I'm not a pain in the butt. I don't publish 25 reviews every week so that you'll get constant notifications and you don't want to be bothered by these notifications. You know, you'll get 2 or 3 a week. It'll be some fun pens. I'm trying to entertain. You'll get to see my recap, or maybe 2 reviews, or maybe some blog of some sort. I know I'm working on that nib video, Wonderful World of Nibs, in 2 parts, big series. Lots of questions are going to be answered in that video. It's a work in progress. Stay tuned, folks. So, grazie molto. Arrivederci. Enjoy your pens. Enjoy your week. It's summertime, folks. Enjoy your golf for those of you who do. Or you know what? Just enjoy walking your dog. That's great stuff. Part of the family. Take care.